Greetings, my honkies. Welcome to an episode of Video Ferox, where we continue our exploration and celebration of Blaxploitation History Month with the baddest one-chick hit squad that ever hit town. Who am I talking about? We're having a warm cup of Pam Grier in Coffy. Let's roll the trailer.
My name's Coffy. I know where you want to, and you're gonna get it. This is the end of your rotten life, you dope pusher. Are you sure you're not just a little black?
And let me see you crawl over here, you black trash.
You want me to crawl?
What are you doing? Put that down.
You want to spit on me and make me crawl?
Just tell me. Did this man send you to kill me?
No, he didn't know nothing.
Take her out and kill her.
I think of all the fun I could have had with a good-looking stud like you.
You really mean that?
All your friends are dead. Well, I killed them all.
And that was Coffy from 1970. Shit, I didn't look up the date on the thing. 1973. 1973, kind of early in Pam Grier's career. She had done like 9 or 10 movies, but a lot of it was like, she started out in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, but it was like, I'm fourth woman. I don't even have a name.
Yeah, she did a couple of Filipino women in cages type movies, and before that she worked with a couple other directors. This was her, I believe, 8th feature, but only the 3rd starring role that really mattered.
And Coffy opens up with this nightclub thing going on. And we meet Grover and Sugar Man, who is in the 70s. Obviously, if you're going to be named Sugar Man, you're a pimp or a drug pusher. And in this case, Sugar Man happens to be both.
Grover says, hey, I got a lady in my car, and she all strung out. She needs some shit. And so basically, Sugar Man didn't want no part of it. I mean, he's got this bevy of people. He's at his table. He's holding court. He's like, I got women right now. I don't need this shit. He's like, no, this is different. You got to come out here and see this shit. Get out of my car. See this woman. Check it out. And so he basically takes Sugar Man to his car, and in there is, holy shit, it's Pam Grier.
And so Sugar Man, he is instantly hypnotized by Pam Grier's titties and says, okay, I don't need to hang out with those people. I got half an hour. Hey, let's go drive around the block. And so he gets in and goes back to his place, where it turns out that Pam Grier is really winding him up because she has a 10 or 12-year-old sister that got strung out on dope. And it was Sugar Man's dope. So she's all like, Sugar Man's getting all hot and bothered and ready to go, and she pulls out a gun.
And she basically, motherfuckers him into next week with it. I mean, this is great behind the headshot of this fro, and then this fro with blood. After she's done this killing, she goes to the hospital where she works, trying to heal and help people, and takes over from an assistant who was trying to help a surgeon sewing up somebody, and ended up just like, you got to take off, and Coffy, why you late? Get in here and help me with this. And she can't do it because suddenly is overcome with PTSD visions of blowing away this guy.
Because the dude on the table in front of her has injuries very similar to what she just inflicted on Sugar Man. So I loved the fact that she's not invincible. She's not this unstoppable force of nature. She is shaken very much by, oh my God, what have I done? I've just started killing people. And it turns out a little bit later on, so she hooks up with her friend Officer Carter, a beat policeman. And she's talking to him and it's like, these people are scum, aren't they? And he's like, yes. Well, don't they deserve to die? It's like, and he's like, well, not really.
She desperately wants to find some moral center to cement herself down so that she doesn't go completely on a berserk killing spree against all of the drug pushers and dealers and pimps and other ne'er-do-wells that she can run into.
And so, yes, this story is essentially what Black Dynamite was parodying, because you have the drug pusher in the community running around pushing drugs to the kids and the black community. And Pam Grier is essentially Black Punisher.
Coffy is dating this senator who's on his way to becoming a congressman. Now, he's just bought a share of a titty bar, and there's some strippers dancing, and he's basically with an associate, and Coffy comes in, and at the bar is this very arch-looking guy with weird sunglasses. One of them is basically regular plastic, and the other is like sunglasses, and he's watching the senator.
So the long story short is that the senator is corrupt with the drug pushers. So he's in bed with her. They find out that Officer Carter is the only honest cop on the force, and he's like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get in on your evil, corrupt deal. Yeah. And so he it says no.
And basically they beat Carter Brown into unconsciousness, and he ends up in the hospital with severe brain damage. The doctor said he might not come out of it. And who should come walking in and say, oh, this is a shame, this is terrible, this happened, but the two white cops on the take.
And that's pretty much what sets Coffy off on her roaring rampage revenge. It's like, okay, I can't get justice the proper way. Fine, I'm going to go get justice at the end of a shotgun.
One of the biggest drug dealers in the country, this Italian guy whose name I can't remember, for the life of me, but played by Alan Arbus.
Yeah, played by you're going to know Alan Arbus from one place. That'd be MASH.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
I'm watching the movie, and I was like, why do I know you? What the fuck is going on with you? Oh, wait a second. That's the psychiatrist from MASH. Holy crap.
Yeah. He's playing this big-time drug importer dealer who has shown up in town, basically, from the other end of the country, to this apartment where all these prostitutes, it's the stable of King George, played by RoboCop's Robert Doakey. It's Sergeant Reed.
Yeah, the desk officer, yeah.
And he basically has all these women. It's kind of like a United Nations of all different ethnicities and whatnot. And Coffy shows up at a place where he's basically hanging out and decides to kind of come onto him at this apartment. It's like this big apartment with a pool, and she's all decked out in a bikini, and he comes out, and she just goes, gets in under his skin.
Well, actually, we missed a point. There's one point earlier on where she goes and she talks to a prostitute that's part of King George's stable, who is somebody that was a patient at the ER. She actually helped stitch this woman's face up after some sort of accident, and she basically leans on her heavy hardcore to try and intimidate information about King George out of her, like where he keeps her stash, what sort of relationships he's got with other criminal types, where he gets his drugs, that sort of thing. And she basically terrorizes this prostitute into spilling all the beans that she wants to know. And then
her big black girlfriend shows up.
Her big black girlfriend shows up and chases her out.
And did you probably didn't recognize the slashed up prostitute, did you? That was Crazy Marge from Friday the 13th Part 5. That was
my God, you're right. Oh, wow.
So we've got the deck sergeant from RoboCop, the Crazy Marge from Friday the 13th, Sid Haig, Pam Grier,
wow,
the guy from MASH, and the flat-chested prostitute that Coffy fights when they wind up with in King George's place. She was the girl from Human Experiments, the video nasty. So we have this potpourri of like really tiny actors that rise to the occasion. So the acting is interesting. And Pam Grier is many things. She's beautiful. She's a great actress. She's not a good voice actress. Oh my God. The accent, the Jamaican accent she uses because King George, he likes exotic. He likes unusual. So she comes in with like, okay, I'm going to have this Jamaican accent, Mon.
That's about the level of it. See, and I'm partly Barbadoan. I've been around Caribbean people my whole life, and I know how they sound, and that ain't it.
No,
and King
it's
George
terrible.
definitely wants exotic. And if you want exotic, Pam Grier is black, Cheyenne, Hispanic, Filipino, and Chinese. You can't get much more exotic than that. But Caribbean, she ain't, I don't think. So she goes in there and basically charms her way into King George's stable by wearing this very good bikini. She's basically on a chair, like one of those poolside chairs, and minding her own business when up comes King George, and she talks her way into his apartment.
And he is totally pimped out in this wonderful outfit that's like this orange jumpsuit with these big flared collars and these glasses and
Big pimp hat and stuff.
But the weird thing is, everybody else is dressed reasonably conservatively. You don't get like shots of the Mac with like the big fur collars and the giant red hats with the feather. Everybody else in the movie is generally dressed normally, at least normally for the 70s, except for King George, who looks like a pimp. He looks like he wandered in off the set of another movie.
The thing is, yeah, I mean, a pimp dressed like a pimp, go figure, and so...
And then that's when the gratuitous titty fight happens.
Oh yeah, there is plenty of boobage. There is major boobage going on in this.
And pretty much every punch
single-
that lands, out come the tits.
Yeah, it's like
this fight
spring-loaded
is
boobs.
epic too. I mean, there's stuff being thrown at each other. There's bottles being smashed. I don't know how many bottles were smashed in this fight scene, but there was a lot. And women being thrown into things and knocking over tables.
Coffy's just back, bitch slapping these women. She's clocking some of them. And before she came back out from King George's bedroom, she went into his private bathroom and took 3 razor blades and strung them into her wig. And so when Miss Human Experiment Salad comes over to grab her by the hair,
She comes away with bloody stubs. It's like, you have just paid the price for touching a black woman's fro.
she's got some serious bleeding going on in the palms of her hands. And there's stuff being thrown everywhere. And King George is about to move in when Alan Arbus says, no, wait, I want to watch this. I like her. I want her now.
Alan Arbus, he also is a complete piece of shit because he gets Coffy into his bedroom and he's all like, come over here, you black nigga. I want you to crawl, you trash.
He spits on her. He hits her and shit, calls her nigger like twice. I mean, she's just completely degraded. She is the slave woman, underneath the whip of the master in this case with his thugs outside, of course.
Yeah, and she actually gets the upper hand. She's done the preparation of sticking a big handgun inside this teddy bear that she's brought with her in her purse. And she basically whips that out and points it at Alan's head, and she starts talking smack to him. And it's like, it's just a great scene of turnabout is fair play.
King George gets his comeuppance in probably one of the most savage deaths I've seen in a long time. And that's even taking the Video Nasty Project into consideration. Because what happens is that Alan Arbus says, go and kill that guy, and sends Sid Haig and his buddy out to go do the job. And so they take him and throw a noose around his neck and says, okay, start driving. And King George is running. It's like, okay, time to stop playing, And they start going faster, and they drag him via the noose. And the reason it's so disturbing is because I can totally see that actually happening in real life to real black men in the 50s and 60s.
I lived in Pasadena when I was really little, and we used to go into L.A., and I'm thinking back on my time in L.A., because it was around that time period when I lived there, like 1973, 74. So this really strikes home, it has that air of familiarity. And I think to myself, well, what would happen if that had been my mother? That would have... And it's the terror of knowing somebody can just shank you like that. You've got this fucking Sonny Jim cowboy and Armin, the mean Armenian here, ordering the black chauffeur, to drive faster and faster and faster. And the chauffeur didn't want nothing to do with it. He's like, I'm sorry, man, I got no choice.
And the actual driving is so goddamn savage because, yeah, they're running him into like planters and all sorts of, I mean, like this
Piles of tires.
This obstacle course thing. I mean, it's totally fucked up.
And they threaten the chauffeur with more of the same if he doesn't like obey. I'm like, I'm good. I'm good.
I keep my mouth shut. I'm out of here.
And a little later on, the other really savage scene that I liked in the movie is that when Alan Arbus is like, "No, just take her out and back and kill her." And Sid Haig and Sid Haig's buddy and the driver, they get in the car and they start driving along. And Sid Haig looks over and it's like, I got to get me some of them Pam Grier titties. Pull over. And they pull over at the side of the highway and Sid gets out and gets over and off comes the blouse. And she stabs him with that sharpened knitting needle. She splits up the hill into traffic on the other side of the freeway. And, I mean, there's cars zipping past, and, like, one of the guys comes up chasing her, and, like, gets hit by this truck, and it's, like, this brutal scene. And, like, the cops, he's, like, driving the wrong way through traffic. It's really fucking effective.
And it was done at night, too, when it's really, really dangerous to shoot that kind of shit. And I think they actually had Pam run out in there and not a stunt woman. And she runs a lot, and she's running in freaking, like, 3-inch heels, right? Like, square heels and shit. And that is not easy to do, running a lot, especially when you're supposed to be playing somebody who's just been brutally savaged. And Sid was bleeding all over the place after getting stabbed in the neck, and you got that cop's got run over, literally run over by a second vehicle.
So the movie is surprisingly brutal for okay, well, there are savage blaxploitation movies, but generally you think Goofy, you think Light, you think Dolomite and Shaft, and not savage like this. No, this is actually a pretty intense flick.
This movie has all kinds of drama and it's got all kinds of betrayal and shit. I mean, her boyfriend, this congressman, has completely taken advantage of the fact that he's got this position of authority to, like, make a change in the community, and he's doing a deal with the devil in order to do it.
All right, Brad, since Coffy was your pick for the month, why did you pick Coffy?
Couple reasons. One, it has Pam Grier and Sid Haig in it. I like both of them as actors. I think they're both very entertaining to watch, and I particularly like what I call their symbiosis.
No, they've got some great chemistry together in pretty much every movie they've done, be it Coffy, be it Foxy Brown, be it The Big Dollhouse, The Big Birdcage. They worked well together.
This movie just has a lot of interesting aspects to it, especially with regards to social commentary, because you've got this senator, this state senator who's running for National Congress, and he is preaching the line of organizing the black community and getting everybody all together and cleaning things up and getting the drugs off the street and taking it back to the white guys, the dealers and businessmen and other pushers that are trying to bring down the poorer black communities. And yet, at the same time, on the other side of his own personal fence, he is in bed with the gangsters. And I think that this is one of the most evil things that a person can do. You're deliberately putting your own people down in such a fashion that they're looked down upon poorly by anybody else, and you're taking advantage of their weakness to boost your own political position. I mean, that is a nasty thing to do.
So one of the facets of social commentary that you didn't mention is that, okay, let's consider Pam Grier and her place in cinema history, where before her, yes, she's had a couple of roles, but they haven't been really big starring roles. And yes, she's had some action parts, but only a couple. This really is the tipping point from where she becomes background player to actual action hero. And a female action lead in the 70s is unheard of. So, yes, we've had Shaft. Yes, we've had people who have been pushing the black voice on screen, but not the first female black voice on screen.
Yeah, we didn't have Cleopatra Jones or TNT Jackson or whoever yet. We didn't have Princess Leia, for the Ripley or like Sarah Connor or anybody like that. Pam Grier definitely was at least at the starting point in the 70s, in the early 70s. I mean, this was, well before Star Wars and other stuff. And, when the studios were cranking out all these kinds of florid movies with high production values, and you've got this, small budgeted movie from a small company that had a proven track record of getting these little, firecrackers into theaters, especially in the black community.
And the one thing that Coffy and Pam Grier does that Princess Leia and Ripley and Sarah Connor don't do is that she is not afraid to weaponize her sexuality, kind of like how she did in Foxy Brown, where she uses her titties to get Sid Haig's attention and uses that and turns it against them. I thought that was really fascinating.
The one thing that you notice about this one is that she's very coy a lot of the time. She plays it low key. When she's in the lion's den, she doesn't go scratching, and whatnot, and loaded for bear until the last minute. No, she kind of works her way up nice and slow. She keeps everything she's done under the hood.
Well, she's very clever. She does the razor blades and the fro. She does the sharpening of the rock, the needle on the rock thing. She is very forward-thinking and very clever in that sort of way.
Yeah, they gave her kind of this, it's kind of like MacGyver before there was MacGyver. Pretty much any tool at hand that she's got that she can help get her out of the situation she's going to use. And I like the fact that she kind of just exudes this, I wouldn't call it necessarily confidence at the time, but it's kind of like the simmering, would-be confidence. It kind of like oozes out here and there. It's incipient. You can feel her gaining that Foxy Brownness, in this movie. You see where she gets that from. She goes from being scared and kind of savage to being confident later and even more savage.
One of the other social commentary things that we didn't touch on is that the anti-drug use thing. That the black community is disproportionately affected with drug use and drug addiction and drug problems. So the hey, drugs are bad, for 1973, well before this is your brain on drugs, was actually pretty progressive.
This was back in the day when talking about that was just talking about it and not necessarily being overly demonstrative about it.
So, a strong female lead, unusual for the time, strong social commentary, strong anti-drug use message, and Pam Grier's titties. Sounds like a complete package to me.
As Antonio Fargas says in Foxy Brown, she is a whole lot of woman.
Okay, being that it's a blaxploitation movie, we got to talk about the music, man. We got to talk about was it funky? Was it tepid? What say you?
It was very utilitarian. I mean, it changes necessarily from scene to scene. When you got the bevy of girls in the apartment, it's a different kind of music than when she's on the street. When you've got that, that kind of music. We're used to that kind of music in the blaxploitation genre because we've seen so many movies that start off with that dun dun kind of music. It's the setup. Then you can settle into the more smooth kind of black shampoo in the shower kind of music, very relaxing and soft. And then you go for the what's going to happen now? She's getting chased by all these guys kind of shit.
It kind of left me cold. It wasn't terrible, but it didn't stand out like, last week with Blackula and just the driving percussion. It was just kind of there. It was very serviceable, but not outstanding.
But like I said, it's utilitarian. It's basically for hire. It's there for the job. It's not florid or over the top. It just goes. It does what it was paid to do.
You didn't get the Hughes Corporation in the nightclub like we did in Blackula. Mm-hmm. We didn't have a strong, Isaac Hayes doing the main theme. It's just kind of there.
Generally, I liked the music, but I also have to agree with you. It wasn't really too defining.
So, do we have any final thoughts on Coffy, or are we just going to take our coffee to go?
It's a good setup for a better character, but it's still a lot better than some of the stuff that was on screen at the time. I mean, when this came out, they were just kind of figuring out what blaxploitation was. I mean, they were well into it since like 1969 or something like that, 67 or whatever, but they hadn't peaked yet. We hadn't had Welcome Home, Brother Charles, or movies like that.
Yeah, this was 73, so the Blaxploitation boom was really starting to pick up steam and momentum. So this is still kind of the early days-ish, but not quite.
They were feeling out what they felt they could do. And, I mean, a fair number of Blaxploitation films are pretty campy, and this one isn't. It comes off straight, it comes off serious. It's got moments of the camp that will follow later. You can see where they get it, but it's got a different feel because of the earliness of it.
All right, well, there we go. That's our thinking on Coffy.
I'll take a cup to go. Make it 2 cups.
All right, Ashley, is Coffy solid or is it a jive turkey?
Right on, brothers. It is solid shit. This is so solid, man. You smack yourself against a brick wall with this motherfucker.
Never do that again. Brad?
I wouldn't go out and say this is an excellent film that everybody needs to go see. It's just a good film that it's got a lot of good merits and hardly any penalties.
I'm going to go with that. I like Foxy Brown much better. Coffy is a very solid movie, but Jack Hill, you can kind of tell he didn't quite know what to do with Pam Grier yet. So it's like, okay, let's just get her titties out and call it a day. He didn't have the, okay, this is what I want to do for you to be a badass that Foxy Brown would have. So I liked it, I enjoyed it, but if you had the two on the table right next to each other, Foxy Brown, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I would rank this up there with like TNT Jackson. What is it? Sweetback, Sweet Badass Song. You know, in terms of like the content, the prostitution, all that stuff going on, the grittiness. Yeah, that kind of a theme going on there.
All right, so thumbs up all around. Mine's a little less thummy-uppy than you guys, but it's still a thumbs up. So there you go. There's Coffy. Well, thank you for joining 2 Jive Turkeys and Ashley as we drink our cup of coffee. Next week, place your bets now on how many times we fuck up the title, because I keep wanting to call it Mr. Tangerine Man. Hell, I can't even get out of this goddamn outro without fucking up the title. Next week, we're going to be watching The Candy Tangerine Man. I did it! Yay! So drop us an email, thevideonastyproject@gmail.com. And until we meet again, friends, stay funky, stay evil funky.
Oh, Meg, you don't have any salad.